How you doing, America? This is Mark with 21st America Podcast. It is a Friday. Let's see, the 28th, 2025, March 28th, that is. I'm trying to get this software to work for me, so bear with me if you would. Let's see. We are going to take a Fox News Ingram angle. It's about Doge. I'm going to talk about Doge real quick because we've got lawfare to follow. They're suing the hell out of everything Trump does. This is a bit of an old clip, but it's a good place to start. I just want to put some groundwork.
Hey everyone,
together,
I'm Laura Ingram. This is the Ingram Angle
we'll
from Washington tonight. As always, thank you very much for spending some time with us. Turning over the rocks. That's the focus of tonight's angle. When President Trump tasked a willing Elon Musk with making the government more efficient again, it was clear that this exercise wouldn't just be performative, where they review a few programs, make a few cuts, and then just declare victory. No. This time, they were serious. And what better place to start than the ongoing foreign slush fund known as USAID?
In shutting down, which we're in the process of doing, shutting down USAID, the reason for that, as opposed to simply, trying to do some minor house cleaning, is that as we dug into USAID, it became apparent that what we have here is not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a bowl of worms.
Yummy, a bowl of worms. And once they started turning over the rocks there, more worms crawled out. USAID should have been disbanded years ago.
No doubt about that. USAID is just a slush fund to spread money all over the place, let the taxpayers pay it. Maybe 5% of the money goes there, the billions and billions of dollars every year that they just blindly hand them. Nobody knows where the money's going. Well, some do because they're getting it put in their bank account. They just keep moving it around. It is on such a grand scale, and the numbers are so big. And as an American, it's just, we're being played for fools. We're being played for fools. I wish it was different. As it turns out, 90% of this is Democrat. There's a few rhinos, Republicans that turn the other way. They're probably getting spiffed too. It's not like they're not getting money because nobody does anything for free in Washington. So, and I'm not trying to make it just the Democrats, but by far, I'm putting 90% on it because that's just what I keep seeing and hearing and reading about. You know what I mean? And that's what Doge is doing. Doge is putting it out there in a way that you can't sugarcoat it. You can't twist it because they're putting the facts. They're posting it online on X as its own page. They have their own website. I mean, transparency, my God, you can't be any more transparent than they are. It's not like it's been with Obama and Biden where, they say one thing and do another and name humongous omnibus bills something that they're not. You know what I mean? Infrastructure bill. What a laugher. No money went to infrastructure. They supposedly spent $3 billion putting up charging stations, and they only found 8 of them, and 4 of those didn't even work. Billions of dollars? Are you freaking serious? They're chargers. They're like what you plug your laptop into, but bigger. You know what I mean? But essentially the same thing. It's a regulated charge at a certain voltage and all this stuff to charge, you know what I mean? These huge batteries in these cars. It's really not all that complicated. And all the design work's been done. So we're being ripped off. That's the bottom line. I'm going to turn my microphone off because I think I've got a feedback problem. So let's hear some more on that.
Now, the agency's top recipient of taxpayer dollars, that has been plagued by allegations of massive waste, fraud, and abuse for decades. And these agencies that benefited rushed to settle with the DOJ after Trump was elected. The largest for-profit contractor for USAID agreed to pay the U.S. government $3.1 million. And that was related to fraudulent billing by a Nigerian subcontractor for a global health supply chain project. And now with the USAID offices at least temporarily shut, with all the dead weight laid off, just imagine how deep this rot goes. Now, the Biden years were just an excuse to spread money around to radicals here, there, and everywhere. In 2023, USAID sponsored scores of DEI events here and abroad, including my personal favorite. I just Googled this and found it today. One was called Celebrating Women in Waste Management, with panels including USAID staff with these titles: Senior Gender Advisor for Environment.
I gotta say something quick. Did you catch that Biden falling asleep on camera in front of a desk? Oh my God. Oh my God. And you wonder who was running the place with that auto pen thing. Who was running this country all this time? It had to have been the group of people around him, Obama pulling the strings and God knows who else. Obama had his finger in it. He did. He's a control freak anyway. But what good did Obama do? Think about it. Look at it now that you can look back at it. What good did he actually do? He inflamed the racial divide in this country like, a Molotov cocktail, for God's sakes. I could go on, but I won't because we want to get through this Doge thing. I read back.
Climate, social and behavior change and gender director, and gender specialist. Well, you get the idea. This is why it's so critical that Doge scour every inch of our government, every line of the Federal Register, every penny that goes out the door. Remember, it's your money. You earned it. Don't let anyone else waste it. And also that Doge notifies the president when staff and spending is unnecessary, when it's duplicative, when it's fraudulent, even destructive. And of course, when it's not specifically required by law, then just eliminate it. Yeah, and that will inevitably mean entire agencies are zeroed out. Please zero them out. And with the runaway agendas, the spending of USAID, it's long past time to close down all of it. Congressional oversight, it already found millions of USAID funds going to administrative costs alone.
We got all kinds of threats from USAID because I was trying to exercise my oversight capacity in Congress. My staff and I had estimated was that 30 to 40% of the USAID's awards would go to indirect costs. So their overhead, their rents, employees,
That's the hell
things
of a
like
rent.
that.
What are they living in? The Taj Mahal?
But for decades, both the left and some checked out Republicans let the agency basically just have its way, with little to no one looking over their shoulders. And during the Biden and Obama years, the gender, the climate, the race activists, they just went to town.
They went totally crazy what they were doing, and the money they were giving to people that shouldn't be getting it and to agencies and others that shouldn't be getting it. It was a shame. So they're tremendous fraud.
And as anyone who's spent time on a farm knows, when you fill the pig trough every day and you fill it with better and better food, well, the animals, they expect that food no matter what. And when they don't get their food, especially at the required time, they start squealing.
We talked about Trump wanting to be a dictator on day one, and here we are.
How is this woman in Congress to begin with, or even in this country? It's all fraud. It hasn't been checked out yet, but when they do, they will deport her ass, as they should, because she shouldn't even be here. She's a radical Islamic, problem maker. I mean, all she does is stir the pot. And she married her brother, for God's sakes. The whole thing is just disgusting.
Is what the beginning of dictatorship looks like. When you gut the Constitution and you install yourself as the sole power. That is how dictators are made.
I don't know what Elon Musk's motivations are. I don't know what his purposes are, but they've got nothing to do with what has been lawfully adopted by the people of the United States of America through the Congress of the United States. We're going to defend U.S. aid all the way.
Again, here's another one, a pig at the trough. You know, that's what these guys are squealing about. Their money's cut off. The more they dig into USAID, it's all billions of dollars going to these little NGOs and nonprofits and out of the country and back in. They're following the money. You know, they haven't even, you know, they're just starting to dig. This is just the first obvious one, because as Oversight was asking for information for years now. They want to know this, they want to know that, they want accounting. It's our money, that's their job. But they were thumbing their nose at Congress, with Obama and Biden's blessing. You know, Trump was in there, but when Trump's first took office, he didn't know Washington, how it worked. You know what I mean? He trusted the wrong people. Some people were good. A lot of them were bad. You know what I mean? And he didn't realize that the swamp would just ignore him. You know, he could put in a request for something and, you know, president's a busy guy. You know what I mean? Unless he's got somebody there reminding him to follow up on something, or he thinks about it on his own, which I don't know. I can't even imagine how busy it is to do that job. But it's just, the corruption is just breathtaking, you know, and they've known for decades. What was it, 82, 84, 5, somewhere on there? They came up with an estimate of $500 billion a year is wasted, lost to fraud, just, you know, mismanagement, whatever. And it's been ignored. It's been ignored until now. That's $500 billion how many years ago? You know what I mean? For them to find $1 trillion now, it sounds pretty reasonable. And we're spending $2 trillion since, you know, Trump had the economy on track. You know what I mean? He was getting the deficit down. It was pretty low. I don't know what it was. It was 100 billion or something. But we're at $2 trillion a year that we spend more than what we take in a year since COVID. All that COVID spending that's they've been blaming it on. Well, COVID's long gone. Long gone. You know, that was gone 3 years ago, 4 years ago. You know what I mean? It's like they can't tell you where the money went. They can't, you know, they just shoved it out the door. You know what I mean? That's what the Democrats do. They shove it out the door, no accountability, big chunks. Like this $2 billion to the Georgia mayor or governor wannabe. What's her name? The black chick. God, I can't remember her name. But anyway, I will just pop into my brain. No, it just flew through. Anyway, a nonprofit she started a year prior. It did $100. It had $100 in it. No idea what they're going to do with the money. Oh, we're going to buy and sell appliances that save energy and what? Give them to people? It didn't make any sense what I read. And so it's bullshit. It is. It's just, you don't hand somebody like that $2 billion. You know what I mean? NGOs lined up everywhere. Here you go, here you go, here you go. And that's what they do. It's money laundering. It's on an epic scale. That's why a lot of people go, oh my God, that can't be true. But it is. It is true. Open your mind. Let your eyes see what you see. Let your ears hear what you hear. Think for yourself. Do not go to CNN or MSNBC or, you know, I listen to all of them. I go to Fox a lot because they talk about stuff that, you know, CNN avoids subjects where Fox will talk about them. They will report on them. And then you make up your own mind. Am I MAGA? Hell yeah. I'm MAGA. In case nobody knew. It's, yes, of course I am. But I don't want this country getting ripped off anymore. That's why they tried to kill Trump, for God's sakes. They tried to put him in prison. They tried to bankrupt him. You know what I mean? They tried to get him off the ballot. Then they tried to kill him. Evidently, there's more than the two we know about. There are other plots that they foiled that never got to that point where they were set up with a gun. It's a plot to kill him. What the hell, man? What the hell? How much you got to know? The Trump derangement syndrome is real. They're really just coming out with it and admitting it's real. Reasonable people just check out. For whatever reason, they hate him to the point they just check out. And the Democrats, they're as much as encouraging violence. What the hell? If we all start doing that, can you imagine how far away we are from civil war? About that far. The left gets dumber and dumber and dumber and keeps attacking. Eventually, the right's going to start swinging back. Then what? You think it's bad now? Who do you think has more guns? The right or the left? My money's on the right by far, times 10. So everybody I know that's Republican, right-leaning, they got at least a half a dozen guns at home. Handguns, shotguns, rifles, you know what I mean? Stun guns. I mean, I'm laughing because it's just, the left just doesn't, they think they can get away with it because they've been letting them get away with it all this time. BLM, Black Lives Matter. Oh yeah, okay, what a slogan. How about white people matter? How about anybody matters? Animals matter. The earth matters. I mean, they're playing on the race fury that Obama stoked, and it's still burning. Obama's to blame for this racial BS. The most racist people I've known on this planet, my years of being here, are black. By far. It's just, it's all over the place. I'm not saying white people aren't racist. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there are more black people that are racist, openly racist. They're on the TV. This Crockett representative in Texas, blatantly racist. Maxine Waters in LA, racist. It just keep looking. This Raskin guy, if he was black, he'd probably be racist too, but he's just another dirty politician. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Back at it.
Well, first of all, USAID was actually created in 1961 by JFK via executive order. And that was after he signed the Foreign Assistance Act into law. And as the chief executive of our government, Donald J. Trump has the responsibility to safeguard our economic well-being, which is now being jeopardized by these types of fraudulent programs. And they're all across the government, by the way. This is just literally scratching the surface. Of course, actually cutting the fat out of government, well, that might as well be a war crime, according to the press.
You want to authorize purging of State Department personnel? What does that mean exactly?
Well, if you want to take a look at the State Department, where DEI has been a priority over, let's say, diplomacy in many accounts, I could give you hundreds of examples of where they were authorizing. Sure, let's list them off. $500,000 to expand atheism in Nepal, $50,000 to do, let's see, a transgender opera in Colombia, $47,000 to do an LGBTQ trans comic book in Peru, $20,000 a pop to do drag shows in Ecuador. Shall I continue with more examples of where DEI was the priority? It
certainly seems like there could be a review of things.
You think, Margaret? Well, of course, Democrats, who are in desperate need of a new boogeyman, are trying to shift blame here. So the bad guys to them aren't the ones robbing the U.S. taxpayers by rewarding their buddies with sweetheart deals in far-flung places. No, the bad guy is the person reviewing the programs for fraud and abuse. That's Elon Musk.
Elon Musk may get to be dictator of Tesla, but he doesn't, and he may try to play dictator here in Washington, D.C., but he doesn't get to shut down the Agency for International Development.
Well, that will be for a judge to decide ultimately, Senator. And I imagine on appeal, at the very least, the Trump administration will prevail, including.
See how they go after they have these buzzwords? They're just trying to scare everybody. Dictator, dictator, dictator. They just, he's Mussolini, Hitler, all wrapped into one. And they're just trying to scare people. And I don't think if you're a politician or a journalist that you should be allowed to just say things like that you just have no foundation whatsoever to say such a thing. It's too misleading. The general public has to have some way to understand what's going on. If you're constantly being gaslit, how are you supposed to know? How are you supposed to know? And the Democrats have seized on that forever, it seems like. Long time, years and years and years. And it's politicians lie, all that shit. I don't think that should be acceptable on either side. It should not be acceptable that a politician just spews out a bold-faced lie that they know is a lie. They have no basis to say it. You know what I mean? This, that, the other thing. They make campaign promises. Well, I plan on doing this. I plan on doing that. Okay. Well, you know that it's an idea at that point. They're not saying, well, I did this, here it is. But when they say he's Hitler or whatever, well, what do you base that on? Because he's done nothing. He's done nothing to be a Hitler or a Mussolini. He hasn't killed anybody. He's a dictator. Well, he hasn't done it yet. He's got 4 years. He wasn't a dictator those 4 years. It's just, they're counting on people to be stupid. And it's just a shame that so many people in this country fall for it. Now they got the hatred whipped up for Trump to the point to where it's a freaking syndrome. Trump derangement syndrome. Wow, they did a good job, huh? They're good at it. When's the last time you saw anybody hate someone so feverishly? Wow. I mean, you'd have to go to a divorce court or something. I mean, it's amazing. It really is. It's kind of impressive if it wasn't so damn sick. But anyway, back at it.
Supreme Court.
If it turns out we really need such an organization in the future, we just create it. Problem solved. By the people, answerable and answerable to the people and to the people's elected representatives. Mm-hmm. That is the way that government is supposed to work.
Yes, it is time for the government to be returned to the people. You are the stewards of the people's money. And it's not the personal piggy bank of government employees who think they answer to no one.
USAID is not an independent, non-governmental entity. It is an entity that spends taxpayer dollars, and it needs to spend it, as the statute says, in alignment with the policy directives that they get from the Secretary of State, the National Security Council, and the President. And it's been 20 or 30 years where people have tried to reform it, and it refuses to reform. It refuses to cooperate. When we were in Congress, we couldn't even get answers to basic questions about programs. That will not continue. That's not going to continue.
Well, it can't continue.
Exactly right. It can't continue. This country will go bankrupt. We're at $36 trillion. $1 trillion is just an enormous amount of money, much less 36 of them. And we're going backwards by $2 trillion a year because of the Biden-Obama spending sprees that they've gone on. And did Trump do it too, but not? He was, I don't know. I don't want to sit here and say Trump was perfect, but he had a lot better run at it financially than anyone else in a long, long time. But he's fixing things now, Bureaucrats are the ones that are allowing this abomination to go on and to happen, to facilitate. They facilitate it. And they don't answer to anybody. They're not elected. No one hauls them off, or fires them or arrests them or anything. Everybody just turns and looks the other way. Not no more. That's what's going on. That's why the Democrats are so upset, so deranged, so just they're getting judges from wherever they can to just throw lawfare at them now that they can't put him in jail and ruin him. Now that they want to just slow down his whole presidency. And for the benefit, for the sake of this country, better hope that they are not successful. It just, no. Another 4 years, if Kamala Harris became president, my God, we wouldn't even recognize this country in 4 years. And I know if you don't follow it like I do for years and years and years, and I've been watching this since before China rise to power and all that. It's just America, I just had an interest in it. And it's oh my God, just be glad that Trump's there. Be glad Doge is there. Be glad that these are billionaires doing this. You know why? That's how they can make it happen? Because they don't give a shit. They got their own money. You're not going to buy a billionaire with a couple $1 million. You know what I mean? But a whole bunch of people will sell their souls for $5 million. We got it. Washington, D.C.'s got everywhere you look, they're there. There's a handful. They're not all dirty, but I would wager to bet 70%, a lot, more than half. I mean, it has to be to work. The Democratic side, they're all paid for it. Why do you think, do they say one thing and then they all just follow suit? They say the same, almost word for word. The liberal media, the politicians that get in front of a camera, they all use the same buzzwords. And then they'll come out with a different set of buzzwords, and they all use the same buzzwords. It's choreographed, for God's sakes, because if they don't get their little $1 million this or $5 million that, or their free mansion on the coast somewhere. You know what I mean? Because they get paid in all kinds of ways. You know what I mean? Offshore accounts. I mean, God, it's just, if they started doing financial audits on all these people that have been in office for more than a couple of years, I mean, you'd see all kinds of shady shit. It is. I am convinced completely, obviously. And what I'm trying to do is lay groundwork to just at least open people's minds. So where that you just see that, look, Orange Man ain't bad. He's been, this country has been getting gaslit. You're being lied to on epic proportions. Anyway, this is the gravy train. That's why they're all coming out of the woodwork. That's why they're, and you go on to the Signal, the latest thing with DOD and the Signal, and they had, how did a reporter's phone number get in a mass Signal text chain? That sounds suspicious as hell. There was a mistake made, or it was planted. They don't know. Even if it wasn't planted, it was just a mistake. They're trying to make it where they want the DOD department head Hegseth to be kicked out. They just want to jettison everybody. What did they do in Benghazi? What did they do to anybody? How many guys died in Benghazi for stupid shit that Clinton did? Nothing. 13 guys died when Afghanistan withdrawal. Should have been heads rolling. There should have been 2-3 generals out. Shit, Biden ought to, oh my God, it's just, the hypocrisy is just, it's on fire, and it always has been. It's just that they get away with it because of the mainstream media. Now they're knocking them down. I'm just hopeful for this country. That's what I am. So anyway, back to it, because I'm rambling here. Sorry.
But President Trump, Vice President Vance, Secretary Rubio, and Secretary Bessent, and Elon Musk, they all know that regardless of what your priorities are, regardless of what you want the government to do for you or for some, other foreign country, right now America is on a collision course with a dangerous economic reality. And they know that bold, unconventional, and sometimes very painful measures are going to be needed to avoid the icebergs ahead. So all those guys, the Trump administration, they're going to be sued. They'll be maligned. They'll be threatened. They're called dictators. But they're not going to waver. Keep turning over the rocks and clearing the path to common sense, and the people will follow. And
that's the angle, as she says. You see about putting this back to where it should be. I don't know. Shoot. No. I'm still learning this. Sorry. There's so many. There's almost too many. There's almost too many. Oh my God. Oh, no way. Really? All right. Well, until I figure that out. That's just one. I'm running along again here, so I'm going to cut this off. Anyway, not sure where to go. I covered a lot here. I'm trying to make somehow I'll try to make this more entertaining. I'm not sure how to do that yet, but I'm working on it. You can bet that. I'm still trying to figure out the software, obviously. All right, that's it for now. I will get back to you very soon because I plan on doing a lot of these. Most of them will be a little shorter than this. So stay safe, America. Why do I have to say okay?